Some crimes are too big to be exposed. When the truth is too dangerous, too scandalous, or too damaging, those involved will go to extreme lengths to cover it up. Documents are destroyed, witnesses disappear, and sometimes even those responsible for enforcing the law become part of the deception. But history has shown one thing: secrets never stay buried forever. Today, we're exposing the biggest crime cover-ups in history. Cases where powerful figures, government agencies, and criminal organizations did everything in their power to keep the truth hidden. But what happens when the cover-up becomes bigger than the crime itself? Stay with me until the end, because one of these cover-ups remained hidden for decades, and when the truth was finally exposed, it shocked the world. And if you love true crime, subscribe now so you don't miss next Saturday's episode, where we uncover mysteries that were solved decades later by complete accident. Now, let's begin. In 1972, what seemed like a routine burglary at the Watergate office complex would explode into one of the biggest political cover-ups in American history. It started with 5 men breaking into the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C. At first, it looked like a simple case of political espionage gone wrong. But when journalists and investigators started digging, they discovered a trail of corruption leading straight to the White House. These burglars weren't just common criminals. They had direct ties to President Richard Nixon's re-election campaign, and their mission was simple: steal information on political opponents. But the real crime wasn't the break-in. It was the desperate attempt to cover it up. Hush money was paid to keep the burglars quiet. Key documents were shredded to erase evidence. Top officials obstructed investigations, trying to bury the truth. But then one mistake unraveled everything. Investigators uncovered secret recordings from inside the White House. Tapes that proved Nixon had been directly involved in the cover-up. There was no way out. Facing impeachment and public outrage, Nixon became the first US president to resign in 1974. Watergate proved that even the most powerful figures aren't immune to the truth. But here's the real question: how many other crimes have been successfully covered up? Ones we still don't know about today? What if the government was conducting illegal experiments on its own citizens without their knowledge or consent? For decades, that was just a conspiracy theory. Then in 1975, the truth came out. It was called Project MKUltra, a top-secret CIA program designed to test mind control techniques on unsuspecting people. Under the guise of scientific research, the CIA experimented on prisoners, mental hospital patients, and even everyday citizens. Without their consent, subjects were exposed to powerful hallucinogens, sleep deprivation, and extreme psychological manipulation, all in an effort to control human behavior. But the most disturbing part: many of these test subjects never knew they were part of an experiment. Some suffered lasting psychological damage, and when the program was exposed, the CIA destroyed most of the documents, erasing the full extent of what really happened. Even today, many details about MKUltra remain unknown. Was the program really shut down in the 1970s? Or did it evolve into something even more secretive? The 1980s were a chaotic time in international politics. But while the world focused on public conflicts, a secret operation was unfolding behind closed doors. It was called the Iran-Contra affair, and it was one of the most shocking government cover-ups in modern history. Here's what happened. The US government secretly sold weapons to Iran, a country it had publicly condemned as an enemy. The money from these sales was illegally funneled to rebel fighters in Central America, even though Congress had explicitly forbidden it. When the story was exposed in 1986, officials scrambled to cover their tracks. At first, the government denied everything. Documents were shredded, testimonies were contradictory, and officials pleaded ignorance. But eventually, leaked evidence proved the truth. High-ranking officials were convicted, but many had their sentences overturned or were pardoned before serving real time. The Iran-Contra affair damaged public trust in the government, proving that laws could be ignored when political agendas were at stake. But here's the real question. How many other secret operations have been successfully buried, ones that never made headlines? Sports are supposed to be about skill, fair play, and the best team winning. But in 1919, what seemed like the biggest upset in baseball history turned out to be one of the greatest sports scandals of all time. The Chicago White Sox were heavily favored to win the World Series. But against all odds, they lost to the Cincinnati Reds in a shocking defeat. Something didn't feel right. Rumors began circulating that players had intentionally thrown the game in exchange for money from gamblers. At first, team owners and league officials denied everything. They wanted to protect the reputation of baseball, even if it meant covering up a crime. But when players started talking, the truth came out. 8 players were banned for life, even though they were never criminally convicted. To this day, questions remain. Did the players act alone, or were high-level sports officials aware of the scheme and involved in the cover-up? One thing is certain, this scandal forever changed professional sports. History has shown us that the most dangerous crimes aren't just the ones that are committed, they're the ones that are successfully hidden from the public. In some cases, like Watergate, the truth eventually comes out, leading to massive consequences. But in others, like Project MKultra, we may never know the full extent of what really happened. And then there are cover-ups like the Iran-Contra affair, where only part of the truth is revealed, leaving the rest lost to history. Which of these cover-ups do you think was the most shocking? And do you believe there are even bigger secrets still being hidden today? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe now so you don't miss next Saturday's episode, where we uncover mysteries that were only solved decades later by complete accident. And always remember what Mats Fredriksson says, no matter how many secrets one holds, the truth eventually finds its way to light. Thank you for watching. See you in the next investigation.